Now, to demonstrate how to test website speed, I'm going to show you another one of my websites, and that is the 26-week digital marketing plan. So that's 26weekplan.com. And what you'll do is you'll take the domain name, so I'm copying and pasting 26weekplan.com here, and I've got another tool open called Web Page Test. So that's webpagetest.org. So this is a free tool to use, and if you copy and paste your URL into there, click Start Test, and it says waiting at the front of the queue there. So there's another test going on at the moment, so it should start in the next minute or so, and this in fact will tell you how long on average your web page takes to load. Now what I'm going to do here is actually just open the home page again, because I want to show you something else just while this test is going on. You see it tells you that it started already, so there's it's ongoing at the moment. But if you have a look at the options here, it says test location, and there are lots of different test locations here as well. So when you're doing it for your website, the most important thing is to conduct the test at the location where it is nearest to the majority of your website visitors, and then you'll get a real indication as to what the speed is like for the majority of your customers. And of course, if you see that your website visitors tend to use a certain browser, Chrome is quite popular nowadays, but maybe you may have user experience issues with certain browser types, so maybe older versions of Internet Explorer could be particularly challenging for your website, or perhaps you're looking in your Google Analytics and you're seeing that people aren't converting using certain browser types. Again, the whole scope of that probably beyond what we're talking about here, but the important thing is to be aware of where your users are based and what browser they're tending to use, and using those two items which are relevant to your users. So let's go back to the test that I was conducting to see if that's concluded now. So I'm just going to click on the window above here, go back to the window, and it is indeed finished. Now, if we have a look at the results here, now we've got one F, which is a red, and the rest of them are fairly good. But the important element here is actually the total load time. That's the time that you need to be looking at here. And anything below 5 seconds is generally okay. Anything below 3 seconds is generally fast. So even although I've got an F here, that's an indication as to how much I can improve something. So I can improve this element of how my page loads, but overall the page and the whole site, in fact, is very, very fast. Faster than 2 seconds is certainly very, very fast. And you can actually click on these views and see individual files to see how long they've taken to load. So I can see that the first byte time, the green element here, took approximately, well, it's 558 milliseconds here, so about half a second. So that can be improved. I can probably shave 0.3 seconds off there, but the rest of it in terms of how files are loading, they're fairly quick. I don't have one single file that's taking too long to load, so generally this is a very good site. Now, if you look at these elements up here, let's give you a brief indication as to what they mean. So first time byte, that's essentially how long the server takes to respond to deliver that first bit of information. You've next got keep alive enabled. What keep alive is the server connection staying live when you're requesting different information from that server. So a web page, as you can see here, constitutes lots of different files. There are lots of different files. I've got 48 files here, which isn't that many. I've seen some web pages with 200 different files in there. But what Keep Alive does is it keeps the connection open. Instead of actually creating 200 different connections to your server to collect the information, the connection stays open, which makes it faster. Then you've got compressed transfer. So between the file going from the server to the web browser that people are using, such as Firefox or Chrome, to view the web page, then the files can be compressed, and that speeds up the transfer there, and obviously the loading of the page. You've then got the compression of images. So I've just got one image on the page. It's saying not applicable, so I don't have to be concerned about that. The next stage is caching static content. So caching static content, what caching is, of course, as we've covered earlier on, is the storing of files or information. So what Google does is stores copies of your web pages on their servers so they can quickly access them afterwards. And this caching is something similar here. So what websites can do is they can cache local versions of web pages on the user's computer. So in other words, if someone opens up your web page and there are elements within that web page that aren't going to change for the foreseeable future, you can store those elements on the person's local computer, so when they come back to load your web page, then the elements that are stored on their computer will load directly from there, and only maybe a couple of items that are updated will come directly from your server. So let's have a little example of that. So looking at the 26-week plan site, so I'm doing quite a good job with that. So elements like my logo and this image here, my 4 Phases of Digital Marketing ebook. So what I'll do is I'll store those images directly on the user's computer once they visit my page, and then when they come back to it, the site will load even faster in the future because they won't have to bother to get the logo and this image directly from the server again in the future. And I'll set a rule so that after so many weeks, these images will expire on someone's computer, and then when that expiry date passes, then the web page is loaded directly from the server again, just to check to see if anything has changed. So that's an element, caching static content, that can be very, very important for improving user experience when they're coming back to your website. And last of all here, I've got the effective use of CDN. So what's a CDN? A CDN stands for Content Delivery Network. So if you've got a media heavy website, if you're showing videos and lots of images, and you've got people from all over the world visiting your website, then what you want to be doing is you want to be serving that content from quite close to the user. Because if you've got someone, for example, in Australia, and you've got a web server based in the UK, then that's a lot of distance that request has to travel before the content is loaded on the user's computer. So someone in Australia will have a sluggish experience with your website compared with someone in the UK if your server is in the UK. So what a CDN is a CDN lets you store different elements of your web page, such as images, such as videos, in these different locations around the world, and then the request to load the web page will come from the original server, but the elements, the heavy file elements, will actually get delivered from the Content Delivery Network location that is closest to the end user. So it means a much better experience. The whole web page will load quicker because of that. Now, because my website 26weekplan.com isn't that media heavy, it's not too big a concern for me. You can see that the total load time is still very, very good there, and it is very good in different locations around the world. So that's why I haven't bothered about a CDN too much. But if you have an e-commerce site that's targeting all over the world with different videos and images talking about your products and services, then a CDN is very, very important. So hopefully that gives you an overview of how to test your web page, and also how to improve different elements within your web page. Now, there's one other tool that I want to make you aware of, and that is the Google Test tool. So what I'll do is I'll go back to 26weekplan.com, copy and paste that URL, and go to the Google Page Test tool. So if you just search Google for Google Page Speed Test, and then that will be the #1 result there for that. And so the Google Developers section actually will let you test web pages as well. So I'll click Analyze there for 26weekplan.com, and there we go. Google quickly come back and tell me, yes, it's mobile friendly, this is what it looks like, but it also tells me what maybe I should consider fixing, and that is render blocking JavaScript and CSS in above the fold content. So what does that mean? Well, render blocking JavaScript is a little bit of code that I might have that loads before the visual elements of my page load. So it might be possible to load that code after my web page is visually complete. So it means the visual elements of my page are loaded first and then the code after that. So hopefully the users will have a better experience. Now, I've had a look at this and it doesn't appear that it's possible for me to load the code after because it's quite integral to my page, but it's important information to look at, and it will give you lots of great advice there, you know, on user experience as well as speed test. And they'll split it down into mobile and desktop there as well. So desktop, my score is 89 over 100 there as well. It's still talking about the JavaScript and CSS. No page is going to get 100, but I've seen plenty of pages with something like 30 or 40 out of 100. So certainly 89 out of 100 is very good. So make sure you use these couple of tools on your website. Maybe compare your results against my 26weekplan.com site and tell me how you get on.